you talk about people rather than pieces of a puzzle, who are the other influencers that can help? So at the point that the decision maker becomes obvious or decision, again, it's that piece of, I just need to pick that up because they're already convinced. They spoke to others, and enough momentum has happened for them to be able to say, you know what, this makes sense to me.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Itai Karelic, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at VHive, where he drives global revenue growth by leveraging his deep expertise in enterprise sales, business development, and digital transformation strategies. With a background that spans leadership roles in innovative technology companies, Itai is a seasoned professional with close to 2 decades of experience in building and scaling sales operations. He has a strong educational foundation with an MBA from both Duke University and the University of Warwick, and a career that includes pivotal roles at Greenlit Technologies and End Storage before joining VHive in 2017, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Itai, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Devin, for having me.
Yeah, it's my
Excited
pleasure.
to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into some of the work that you're doing here with VHive. I think that you'd have some really incredible experience here to share with the audience. But before we get too far into it, I'd love to start with maybe a quick little background on who you are, where you came from, and how you landed the role at VHive.
Sure. So um, I, I guess I started in consulting, like most people that are not sure what they want to do after my military service. And at some point, I was frustrated with what I was doing and I wanted to build something rather than just help others build something. And at the time, I felt the two main tracks that I wanted to get into are either clean tech or medical devices, startups in the field. Again, a smaller company, a fast moving company was more exciting to me. I landed a role at Greenlit Technologies. And from there, I guess my experience evolved into bigger companies, more responsibility, greater roles, etc. So that's really where it started. And in general, I would say I tend to focus more on areas where there is a technological advantage, or I would say there is a cool technology behind it, whether it's deep tech, where as it was at End Storage, or it's more the future, which is really VHive or the whole area of digitization. But I do enjoy where there's, even though I don't write the code, where there's a real technological barrier that you need to break into, and then implementing that within your customers, because it does change how they do business. So in general, that's what I'm drawn to. And the other part is I enjoy much more relationship sales. I'll give you an example. There's companies like HubSpot that have done incredibly well with what I would call more transactional sales. Typically, they got a couple $1,000s for a customer. They have a ton of customers. I don't know what their valuation is, but tens of billions of dollars, right? Amazing. Whoever the CRO is, it's amazing. I enjoy much more working with the likes of Verizon or Deutsche Telekom, et cetera, where you really dig into how to change their workflows and do things that will impact their business, and also develop a relationship with the senior leadership all the way down to the people that actually need to use the technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get a sense that you kind of have a keen eye for puzzles and like to get in there and make sure that things are optimized and functioning properly, maybe implementing systems and processes. Is that part of what kind of intrigues you in that space?
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. It's a very flattering a way to characterize it. I would say, yes, I'm very interested in, is this a real problem? And does the solution I provide a real solution? Is there real value in what I do? And the angle isn't just, and again, I'm not discounting, sometimes just changing a workflow is all somebody needs, and that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy the additional technological angle where, hey, there's a complete transformation on how I think, how things should be done, and how things can be done versus how I think they should be done, right? And to see that realization in your customer that, oh, this is an order of magnitude difference than what I did, right? It's not just a better mousetrap. So I do enjoy that very much.
Is it
So
just
yes, in a way, it is solving a puzzle.
Yeah, just getting inside there and helping people really see the light. I love that that's a part of your framework. So you've been there since 2017, and um,
Actually, December 1st, already 2018, but yes,
okay,
it
and so
was,
that
it
was
was
like
just, yeah,
right
about
on
six
the
and a half years ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right on the edge of what was a huge turning point event for a lot of businesses. And I imagine that there was some pivoting or re-navigating that had to be done in your role between when you first started, then how you helped kind of navigate through the pandemic situation, and now on the other side. So I wonder if you could maybe talk to a little bit about the that transformation of your role at VHive.
So I will put it, first of all, you are correct. Things have transformed significantly in the fact that we're doing this interview on Zoom and everybody feels that this is the way business should be done. Why
Yeah.
would I travel all the way to wherever you are? I'm not even sure. I think that is transformational as a society. I want to take a step back. VHive had no revenue when I joined, and doesn't matter, but we crossed the 10 million. So, obviously, there's once you're at 10 to 50, right? That's how they call it.
Mm,
And so, getting to the scale up phase, I think your role as a CRO or VP sales or whatever you want to call it should change every 18 months with your company, right? What I needed to do in the first 18 months is not the same as the following ones and the following ones and the following ones. And now actually I find myself again in this position where, moving from 10 to 50 is a very different organization, very different set of skills, very different requirements for my team, very different requirements for my customers. And
mm,
that I have to go through that transformation as well. So adapting to the life cycles of your company is critical. And if you can't adapt, then yeah, maybe you should only focus on early stage, help them, and then have somebody else take over. If you want to take it from 0 to 100, the 100 million CRO is not the same CRO um, as zero, right? Where it starts at zero. And you have to make that personal transformation if you want to be that person. So in general, I have transformed how I see things, and VHive obviously has to transform as a company. But that's a general statement. Specifically, yes, the pandemic was a shock to everybody. But what people quickly realized is if you need to climb a cell tower, and specifically, we haven't spoken about what the VHive does, but VHive creates digital twins. And basically, it allows the likes of Verizon or the likes of, Deutsche Telekom, etc., to understand what they have, or tower companies like American Tower and so forth. Sorry, they're not our customer, but other companies like SBA and Phoenix Towers International and so on, to understand what they have on the towers and basically change that other workflows to digital workflows. And what they realized is, oh, this actually solves a big problem for us in the pandemic. We can send just one person, so there's no two people that need to climb the tower. They just scan with a drone, and all the work can be done digitally on a computer screen for people that are right now working from home, rather than engineers together at the office.
mm.
And this realization clicked for a few of our customers, and actually, with some of them, accelerated our business. But we were needed to show them that that was the case. Right at the beginning, everybody just literally and figuratively hunkered down. The world's coming to an end. We're not going to spend any money. Nobody can go outside. What do we do now?
Yeah, and that's a tough place for everybody to be in. And now from that rises solutions that we never otherwise would have had to have thought about. It's kind of like being cornered in, backed into a corner, and now you got to solve this new problem, which is really cool because it I think falls in line with your puzzle
Puzzle.
solving
Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the skills you mentioned this, and I would love to dig deeper into this one. Some of the skills that you acquire at that first, 0 to 5 is not the same that you have going from 5 to 10 or from 10 to 100. Um, what are some of what are some of the strategies in that first uh, part of your efforts versus some of the strategies that you're up to now?
So the first one actually is the most fun because it's just you and the founders and three other technical people.
Mm,
And if you have ADHD, it's great because you have to do everything. I literally did the QA because there were infrastructure assets that don't exist back at headquarters in Israel that I had to do QA for.
Mm.
And you do the actual demos and you negotiate the first deals. And I remember the first $30,000 deposit, right? And that was amazing. Now it's, most of our customers do monthly more than that, right? The 30,000. But so it's very exciting. You have to do everything. You have to be willing to do everything. And you have to move very, very quickly between speaking to C-level execs to the people that actually implement, and even the field personnel, like people, that actually go out with the drone to digitize. So mostly it's flexibility and being able to do everything at once. So that's what I would say is required, from the zero to about 1 million, right? Because once you start, you're at 1 million, your customers expect an enterprise solution. I
Mm.
think that's where that's the first transformation as a company, where it's no longer, oh, this is really nice, this is really cool, this is a really neat technology. No, no, no. We need APIs and we need security certificates and we need this to work 99.9% of the time. Actually, it's 6 zeros behind it, right? And if there's a technical support, there has to be a ticketing system and there has to be a support system. And oh, this isn't just Itai answering phone calls. Now we need a system in place, but it's a fairly small system. The overhead can bury you, right?
Mm.
And that's the first transition. Um, the second transition, I would say, okay, now you're a little bit more enterprise grade. How do you scale up? And scaling up is difficult. It's very, very, very difficult because you need more customers, so it's not enough just to be focused on one customer, and each would have different changes or different requirements. And secondly is having the customer say, oh, this is great, but is it great for me to move and actually spend a couple $1 million a year with you, which is really where you want to go with enterprise, and building that relationship all the way up and having enough buying requires interaction with a lot of groups within the organization, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I guess to summarize at the beginning, absolute flexibility, then the realization you're now enterprise software and you have to treat your customers as enterprise customers and behave in a certain way. And it's both a transition as a company and as a CRO. As I mentioned, you have to do that transition together with them. Does that answer your question? Are there, maybe I'm missing some of it. I just want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And so what I'm picking up on, Itai, is that there's this initial startup focus that's really on developing the product and making sure that you have something that really does move the needle for somebody, whatever that is. So a lot of the focus was on like, let's create something that achieves that goal for our clients. Um, Bring that to them, let them ruminate on it, iterate on it, improve on it. And then at a certain point, the focus then shifts from, okay, we've got a product now. Now we really got to focus on this customer experience, the relationships, that satisfaction. We really got to make sure that these clients now stick with us over a longer period of time because, we have the thing that they need and we just need to continue to nurture that. So is that what you're kind of
Yes,
pointing at?
yes, and I would just say it's maturity. So whether it's VHive is still a product company. We still are a product company. We're not a services company. We still work on a product, and that product is what we sell to our customers. I think that, first of all, the word value has to be there. Even when you're a very early stage company, you said move the needle, but it's very important to specify. It's new, it's exciting. Everybody's excited about this, but it has to provide value, tangible value.
Right.
And then as you progress, it has to provide much more value. But again, the customer experience, the user experience, all of that has to be much more enterprise grade because that's what these companies expect. And really, as you grow as an organization and start having more of these customers, your job as a CRO changes from managing to leading. So suddenly I have VPs that manage regions and not necessarily be in the thick of everything,
Mm-hmm.
but trust and delegate and really lead them rather than manage them. And I think that is a transition I'm going through right now and with my team, where okay, revenues are accelerating further, and more customers, more headaches, and how does everybody else solve the headaches without Itai, and how does Itai lead them? And of course, there's some cases where my involvement, even with the small details, is required because something happened, right? That's always the case. But in general, I think that's the transition now that I'm going through, and the company is again going through as it scales up.
So there's a and you mentioned this at the very top of it. There's a necessity for you to engage with people on a more deeper kind of basis. How do you organize your efforts in a way that is effective to maintain relationships, to start them, to build them, to have all the right conversations, and then further to that, how do you optimize your team and educate your team or motivate your team to be able to continue to do those specific things that you have kind of had a hand in organizing?
So I think first of all, right, it starts at recruitment, is understanding people that have done enterprise sales and do understand and value relationships. So whatever they do goes into that. As again at the beginning, it's fairly easy. You develop those relationships, then you start only focusing as the company grows on the relationships that are critical for you to maintain, both because there are more important customers, but also because these are the key decision makers. And now at the point that we're at, it's trusting your team. It's checking with them, where are you in your arc in terms of
Mm,
the relationship? How much do they trust you? And asking them tough questions. And if the answer is unsatisfactory to both me and, let's say, the VP or the sales director, how do we remedy that? What needs to happen for them to have that relationship? Right? Because there's a limit to how many people I can meet. And ultimately, the reality is that, if we close it, there's a couple of large accounts, and if we close one of these big accounts, the bulk of the relationship, or the strongest part of the relationship, will not be with me. It will
mm,
be the decision maker plus my VP and sales director. And yes, I will have to be there every so often and shake hands and make sure that the customer knows that I'm 100% behind this, and that the full weight of the company will be behind my guys. But you can't have let's call it a great and intimate relationship with every decision maker in the world. You have to trust your team to be able to develop those.
right.
And it's all
So,
about asking them the right questions. So if they're not sure they're there, help them get there.
right, as this actually, that's funny. I was just about to kind of push in that direction of I'm just given how niche like this the solution is. I'm sure that there's not a lot of people searching for this. And there's not maybe a lot of people on social media where you can run ads or on TV or radio or whatever. So there a lot of this is that one-on-one personal outreach, handshakes, meeting people, networking, events, all that sort of thing. Um, do you see that posing any sort of challenges or bottlenecks, or have you kind of refined a very specific outreach
So
program, or are you kind of in the middle of figuring that out right now?
we're in, I'll put it this way. I'll address it in two parts. One is really the niche aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the second part is how we approach it. So the reality is, for example, in the United States, there's a grand total of 6 potential large customers. That's about it. These are the sort of for. I'll take a step back. Digital twins are becoming more and more the norm anywhere in infrastructure. Okay,
Okay.
so there are companies that do great in construction, and there are companies that do great in mining, and there's companies that do great in agriculture, and many areas. And we specifically focused on telecom, and now we're adding renewables. So in telecom, if you look at it in digital twins, you really want to land the big ones. So there's a grand total of, there's a few more smaller ones, but really big 6 ones. The 3 major operators: Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile,
Mhm.
and then what are called independent tower companies: American Tower, Crown Castle, and SBA. And um, so yes, there's no SDRs. You're not going to call the head of networks at Verizon, who runs all of Verizon's network, right? And
Right.
say, hey, do you want digital? He's not going to answer. He doesn't care. It's the relationship that needs to be formed. So first of all is to identify who the right people are to form that relationship. How do you get to them? Typically, most of the salespeople I hire do have significant relationships already in this space in telecom, and understand enterprise sales. and so they're able to either know them personally or able to get them very, very quickly.
Mm.
And they have a personal reference, so the person knows that they've done out of business in this space before, and VHive has strong enough references as reference customers that they say, okay, this is worthwhile having a conversation. I mean, we're not Cisco, but I would say for the people that are relevant to us, they know who we are, both personally and in terms of a company brand. So I, if I paraphrase your question, is how do you create these relationships, right? First of all, how do you get to these people and how do you create? So really seasoned salespeople is the people we have to hire because it's so important, because the size of the deals is significant, the size of the companies is significant. And then we are improving on that playbook on how to strengthen the trust our customers put in us. I think that's the most important part. How do we strengthen the trust in us personally and in VHive in general as a company?
Yeah, and it kind of brings into focus the difference very starkly between people who are aware of the problem and people who are aware of the solution. It seems to me that there are a lot of people who know that a problem exists, or at least the big players know that there is some kind of problem here in terms of maybe just overhead or cost associated with, some of the tasks that you kind of outlined maybe earlier. Versus, is there a solution to this? And if there isn't one readily available or something that's easily searchable or found inside of one's network, now it becomes okay. Well, let's hope that somebody's innovating for this, which I think is kind of more or less what you have is the task that you and VHive have taken on is to address that problem that people don't know they have. So now you're really kind of tasked with that. Finding people who have these networks, who have already worked in these spaces, who kind of already know the right people, and I guess yeah, that can pose some challenges. So your approach to that then is to build relationships with these salespeople, and then have them kind of go and act on your behalf. Is that kind of an accurate?
I'm
Uh,
not sure I understood, but yeah, generally, again, everybody we hired, almost everybody we hired had significant experience in the field and have
right,
sold to these enterprises.
right.
And
They already kind of know the
that's the people
people.
we hire. I mean, they work for us, and again, not for us. We try to build a team spirit, right? There was a um, I'll give an example. For some reason I'm very good before we go to a conference. I'm very good at looking at people's faces and then figuring out, because nobody's LinkedIn picture really looks like them, but figuring out, oh, that is the right person from their picture out of thousands and thousands of attendees. And I'm just better at hunting people. And if we have a booth, even though I'm the CRO and my sales director and VP are staying in the booth, I'll go and hunt for them. So it's a team. It doesn't really matter who does the job as long as we have a team effort and everybody covers for everybody, and we're able to together literally hunt down the person. No, but not, from a business perspective, right? Bring in the right prospect, the decision maker, and or the influencer, right? The technological influencer, rather than the decision maker, and say, okay, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. So um, I want to emphasize, yeah, it's important to keep the team spirit and have everybody work together towards a common goal. Have your uh, goals aligned and incentives aligned.
Hmm.
But yes, my guys do have these relationships entering into VHive already.
Yeah, and that's really helpful, especially in this space. So, as we kind of come to a close with our time together here, Itai, I wonder if we can look a little bit into the future here and maybe share a little bit about some of the opportunities that you're excited about, maybe some of the goals that you're aiming at. What's in store for the future of VHive?
So there's two areas. The first one is renewable energy. We identified some gaps. There are very strong players in the digital twin in the renewable space, companies we respect, and they definitely lead the way both in solar and wind. But we did identify some gaps that they have and believe and actually have been able to secure customers from them. So very excited about diversifying the company portfolio from telecom only to renewable energy, and being able to make significant roadways there, especially because they have a strong renewable energy background coming into VHive. I think my personal goal, and of course it fits the goal of the company, is to reach 50, and actually hopefully in the not so far future, $100 million in sales. It's great for our equity, it's great for our investors, it's great for the company's valuation, and it's also a great personal goal, right? There's not a lot of people that can say I took it from a 0 to 100. I mean, there's enough, but not a lot of them. And it means you were able to do something significant, at least in the industry you were at. You were able to create value for your customers, that they believed enough in you at the beginning, but then saw the value scaled up enough with you.
Mm.
Create a great reputation so other customers join because they've heard how you've done somewhere else. And then ultimately, because of the value you've delivered, do well for yourself and for VHive.
And so, what are some of the metrics that you're going to use to help you determine whether or not the paths you're going down are lending to that success?
So obviously it's revenue growth, but also let me answer a little bit differently. The problem with our sales process, and I'll define the problem first, is that it's very long.
Mm.
It can be, the shortest is 12 months, and it could be 3 years. So to close Cellnex, it took us 3 years. And where are you on that path? At the beginning, when it was only me or just another person, you have a sense, you know where you're at in the process and how long it's going to take, and you can keep the company honest in terms of how much revenues are you going to get now in terms of POCs, and what deals are they going to sign, and what deals they're going to sign, and how they're going to scale up. But as you have a much bigger pipeline, I mean, it's not massive. There aren't a lot of tier one telcos globally, but you still have a big enough pipeline. You need to keep yourself honest. And what we basically did is we broke down not just key milestones, but much smaller milestones, not as detailed as a project-based or micromanagement, but understand these are all the things that need to happen for you to close a $5 to $10 million deal on an annual basis within 24 months, let's say, right? So it has to be at a certain volume at 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, decision points, and actually timing. When do budget decisions happen and stuff like that? You have to time everything to your customer. And so let's say you'd break down, okay, I want to be in October of 2025. Let's say at the beginning of 2024, I want to be with Vodafone, doesn't matter. I want to be in October 2025 at this position so they can make a massive budget decision for 2026. Of course, you make revenue before that, but you start breaking down, and we know already what needs to happen and how long these processes happen. And so somewhere in August, if certain things didn't happen, I'm talking August 2024, I already know I have a problem for October of 2025. It's
Right.
keeping yourself honest that's critical in this long process. How many wins do you have along the way? How many people did you convince? How much money are you generating right now for them to become a significant customer? Right.
Yeah.
So it's and these things are, what happens at the end of the POC, what happens at the end of the initial scale up, how much revenue you're gaining past the POC, who are the people that you've engaged with, right? Where in the cycle you are in terms of, even in where you are in the cycle in terms of reorganization. We know these companies reorganize every 3 years. The reorganization happened 2.5 years ago. What do you expect 6 months from now to happen? You
Right.
really have to know your customer and see what is it going. Now, it doesn't mean that for sure in 6 months there'll be a reorg, but it's likely. And where do the people you are now engaged, the head of networks, where is he going to be or she going to be 6 months from now? What is the political landscape internally? So there's a lot of moving pieces, and we need to build a plan for all these moving pieces going forward, and keep yourself honest. Am I on track?
It
That
sounds to me like a very challenging and complicated process to be able to keep track of all of these relationships and where they are. But then to your point, this being like radically honest and transparent to yourself and accountable to those things outside of the whole reverse engineering process. You really got to be looking at all of the things that you laid out for yourself, um and so what happens when you start missing a mark? Like how do you kind of give yourself a kick in the butt to get right back on track there?
I'll use your analogy. It is a thousand-piece puzzle, right? And now you can't find that piece because everything is dark in that area, and there's hard. You just need to see the shape. So yeah, you just want to make sure that it's one piece that you're missing and not a whole section. To use that
Oh,
analogy, and specifically is to say, okay, I've missed certain marks. What is the problem with that mark? How do I fix that? But not have tunnel vision. Maybe that mark is going to be impossible. And maybe it's okay if one piece out of the thousand-piece puzzle is right now missing, because at the end, it will just be there and I'll just need to put it in. But
right.
right now, what's everything around it that makes sense to me? And who are the other marks that can strengthen that? And
Really powerful.
if you talk about people rather than pieces of a puzzle, who are the other influencers that can help? So at the point that the decision maker becomes obvious or decision, again, it's that piece of I just need to pick that up because they're already convinced. They spoke to others, and enough momentum has happened for them to be able to say, you know what, this makes sense to me.
Right. So being flexible and in those times of facing those challenges, but also still kind of keeping your eyes on the prize and making sure that at some point that gets addressed. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and
Listen,
people disappear sometimes.
right?
They don't answer. You have
Yeah,
a 3 month process. They answer every one of your emails and calls, and suddenly, bang, they're gone. And you don't know whether what's happening. Why is it? Are you not a priority anymore? Is your competition a priority? So on and so forth. As to say, okay, I can't push anymore here. What do I do elsewhere that I can push?
right. Yeah, that malleability of being able to move to the next thing while you're waiting for the clock to run out on the other one. That's really
Malleability
useful.
and relentlessness. You just can't stop.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't give up. Yeah. Sorry.
No, no, that's fine. This has been great, Itai. I'm very grateful for the time and wisdom you shared with us here today. In closing, I wonder if you could share a bit of advice for anybody who's out here, up to it, trying to make a difference, trying to move something forward for themselves. What sort of advice might you offer them?
I think it's if we're talking about general things, is uh, being relentless and leaving no stone left unturned. But before that, make sure you're able to build trust
Hmm,
and long lasting trust. If you are in these type of large deals, these industries, they seem large, but they end up being fairly small.
right.
It's the same people. And if you have a good reputation, even if that person doesn't know you, you can say, oh, well, that person does know me. And they'll pick up the phone and check who you are, not just who your company is. So build trust, don't oversell. Yes, embellish maybe sometimes a little bit because we're salespeople and we want to show our best side.
Hmm.
But don't oversell. Make sure you deliver. Make sure people trust you. Don't stop pushing, and but deliver value. Without the value to the customer in enterprise, nobody cares. It's just if it doesn't move the needle, as you said a few times in your questions, you could be the greatest salesperson at the end. You're only going to have short-term success. You're not going to have long-term success.
Yeah, the good news is, one of my mentors once said, if it takes you less than 6 months to sell something, you're a fad and you're not gonna last. And so if you have a sales cycle that takes some time because you got to build these deep relationships, there's a lot of opportunity that you could be unlocking for yourself, which is also really cool. Listen, Atai, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show here. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They're welcome to try my LinkedIn profile, and just send me a quick note. What is it that you're looking for? I'm more than happy to help. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that ask for help and say, hey, just advice. Always happy to or connecting to somebody. So if you provide enough information for me to make a determination that this isn't just spam, my LinkedIn is wide open. If you just send me a, hey, I'd like to connect, that's not going to happen. I can't
Yeah.
help. I can't
So
help.
be specific as well.
Again, but it's a provide value to yourself and to me and build a relationship, even if it's just online.
Yeah, wonderful.
But
That's
yes,
great.
people are welcome to reach out on my LinkedIn. It's my first and last name. It's fairly easy to find.
Perfect. We'll make it even easier to find. We'll put a link to in the show notes to your LinkedIn so that people listening or watching can find you from there. On that note, if you wanted to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing or AI needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, and I will see you in the next.